On April the 14th, 1865, as news of the fall of Richmond spread and the streets of Washington celebrated, Lincoln hosted several of his friends at the White House. He told the guests jokes and read to them, all while ignoring various calls for dinner. This type of situation was typical for Lincoln, who almost seemed to disregard the importance of food. Anyhow, on that evening, he was finally summoned with an insistent note, urging him to come to dinner, to which the party uneventfully attended. Later that same evening, Lincoln and his wife Mary left for Ford's Theater by carriage to see the play Our American Cousin by Tom Taylor, a showing that, indeed, would become a catastrophic historic event for the United States of America. Anyhow, what's less discussed is what Lincoln actually ate for his last meal, an extravagant serving of mock turtle soup, roast Virginia fowl, chestnut stuffing, baked yams, and cauliflower smothered in cheese sauce. I think it's important to point out that Lincoln didn't always eat this way, as he rose from humble means. Born on February the 12th, 1809, in Hardin County, Kentucky, the president grew up in a one-room log cabin with parents who didn't know how to read or write. He spent his youth going in and out of school, but was mostly self-educated from borrowed books. His mother died when he was only 9 years old, and his father remarried soon thereafter, with his new stepmother encouraging his education. Before his rise, as a young adult, he was a flatboat navigator, storekeeper, surveyor, and postmaster, but also a soldier who served in the 1832 Black Hawk War. At 25, Lincoln was elected to local government in Springfield, Illinois, taught himself law, and opened a legal practice, earning the nickname Honest Abe. After a term in the House of Representatives and 2 failed Senate races, he made his way to Washington, D.C., where he was inaugurated as the 16th President of the United States on March the 4th, 1861, arguing against slavery all along the way. Throughout life, Abraham Lincoln maintained his humble demeanor and never considered himself above others due to his station. He was always that poor boy from Kentucky, so you almost have to wonder if he ever felt comfortable with those regal presidential dinners.
First step is to kind of smash a little bit the chestnuts. You can do it like by some tool, or actually they're very crunchy, so you can do it by hand. Those are cooked chestnuts. And just, maybe it's obvious, but just to be sure, those are not the chestnuts that are growing in a park. So please have that in mind, that those are edible chestnuts. To make this stuffing, we are going to add some sauteed onion to these chestnuts that I crumbed moments ago. A little bit of breadcrumbs, walnuts that I need to chop a little bit. Oh wow, I just love the smell of sage. So if you think about that, this dinner is basically chicken and potatoes, but a little bit different way. I'm going to add a little bit of chicken broth just to combine everything together. We have the stuffing ready. It's time to get to work. So the important thing is to put a lot of butter under the skin and a lot of stuffing inside. This bird, if you overcook it, it's done. The president would not approve of it. This bird is much different than chicken. Even if it's the same family, chicken has way more meat, and it's I would say the chicken is not so tender. This one, you cook it and you feel like you're eating almost rabbit, not chicken.
Lincoln ate this dish at the president's dining room with his wife Mary and his 2 sons, Willie and Tad. But apparently, mealtime was never his top priority. The president was a busy man and a workaholic, However, once you got the president to the table, it seemed that he never lost sight of that poor Kentucky boy he used to be, with some sources claiming that eating was a time for him to let loose, relax, and connect with his family. Even though he wasn't a known fan of food himself, dinners were often informal and open to any guests that would arrive at the White House. And gifted food was regularly donated to hospitals. Apparently, Lincoln even paid his waiters and chefs out of his own pocket. As mentioned before, Abraham Lincoln was reported to have had a simple taste for food and never ate much of it. He often said that he preferred it, quote, with no frills, and saw food more as a fuel for his body rather than a creature's comfort. With that in mind, he hardly ate because he was busy with his duties or because he simply forgot. But when he did eat, it was because his staff was very proactive in serving him. Breakfast was almost always an egg, toast, and coffee, and lunch was usually a biscuit or an apple with milk, and apparently Lincoln loved apples. He ate them, core and all, so it's no wonder that his favorite dessert was apple pie. For dinner, he would enjoy corned beef and cabbage, oyster stew, or his favorite meal, chicken fricassee. And though he usually avoided any unnecessary eating, Lincoln could be seen partaking in Army coffee and baked beans at Union camps, showing his down-to-earth nature. Kinda like that time President Biden ate pizza with the boys on his trip to Poland. Here we have it, Abraham Lincoln's final meal. I'm actually from the land of Lincoln, and I have to attest that I've never had yams or fowl. In fact, I never heard of that bird until today. But from what I can see here, this is a classic old school American dish. It's a lot of pressure. A slice of this. Oh, it looks nice. The meat is very tender, very gentle. I have a feeling that this might just be a lovely meal, even in modern times. It's incredibly good. And it's very different than contemporary stuffing. It's got a less obvious taste.
It's completely different than contemporary chicken.
There's almost like a bitterness to it, quite frankly. Okay, and let's try the yam.
How do you even eat that? I expect that it's going to be soft and like mushy.
I could see why they would replace this with sweet potato. It's kind of chalky. However, I'd argue, and I don't know if this is just nostalgia speaking here, that there's a certain elegance to it that you don't have in sweet potato. Let's call it a more intellectual flavor. This is an incredible experience, and I really, really feel the history in this food. It's so obvious, based on the ingredients that we effectively never use in contemporary food, that we're eating a dish that's truly from another time. Many sources cite President Lincoln's last meal as an extravagant mock turtle soup, roast Virginia fowl, and chestnut stuffing, baked yams, with cauliflower cheese sauce. However, historians have pointed out that this doesn't really line up with Lincoln's eating habits or his taste for simple foods. Others explain that his last meal just happened to be a special occasion in celebrating Good Friday with a dinner party. What's more likely, however, is that he enjoyed one of his regular, simple meals on his last night, like corn pone or corned beef and cabbage. However, as a gesture of respect, we decided to recreate the romanticized version of his last meal, as his legacy of hard work, many skipped dinners, and long days resulted in him accomplishing his goals of preserving the Union and putting an end to slavery.